Clyde Lewis, and welcome to How the World Will End. It's my take on how we may intentionally or accidentally meet our own extinction. There have been some unbelievably cold temperatures happening in the United States for the month of May, as temperatures have dropped because of a polar vortex over the Northeast. Meanwhile, Fairbanks, Alaska clocked in at 82 degrees in the Pacific Northwest last week. Now, how is it that there are such anomalous cold events on an ever-rapidly warming planet? Well, while many of us have grown tired of a lockdown, scientists have now determined that the sun is on lockdown, and fears of global warming should be calmed now as cooler temperatures are coming to the planet and possibly areas of the world that will be in famine. The sun has entered into what is called lockdown, which some scientists are warning could produce freezing weather, earthquakes, and famine in the near future. According to a report from the New York Post, the sun is currently in a period of solar minimum, meaning activity on its surface has fallen dramatically. Scientists believe that we're about to enter the deepest period of recession for the sun that has ever been recorded, as sunspots have virtually disappeared. Astronomer Dr. Tony Phillips recently stated, quote, "Solar minimum is underway, and it's a deep one. Sunspot count suggests it's one of the deepest in the past century. The sun's magnetic field has become weak, allowing extra cosmic rays into the solar system. Excess cosmic rays pose a health hazard to astronauts and polar air travelers. They also affect the electrochemistry of the planet, the Earth's upper atmosphere, and they may help trigger more lightning." According to the report, NASA scientists fear this event could produce a repeat of the Dalton Minimum, which took place between 1790 and 1830, and led to periods of brutal cold, crop loss, famine, and powerful volcanic eruptions. History showed that temperatures plummeted up by 2 degrees Celsius or 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit over 20 years, devastating the world's food production. On April 10, 1815, the second largest volcanic eruption in 2,000 years took place at Mount Tambora in Indonesia, killing at least 71,000 people. The event also led to the so-called Year Without a Summer in 1816, also nicknamed 1800 and Freeze to Death, when there was snow in July. Thus far, in 2020, the sun has been blank with no sunspots 76% of the time. Rates surpassed only before the space age last year, when it was 77% blank. There's also the ever-looming report of sun-dimming projects that are meant to cool the planet through geoengineering. Engineered snowstorms are a major part of the ongoing climate engineering assault on our biosphere. Massive fluctuations of temperatures and conditions accompany such unnatural events. It is now becoming apparent that many so-called natural weather anomalies are not natural any longer. The way to tell if the weather's been engineered is to monitor temperature spikes and how unnatural occurrences, such as softball-sized hail and snow, are falling during days that are above freezing, and it's happening a lot around the country. How can there be so much snow after such high temperatures? Are we to think that it should be snowing at temperatures in the 40s, not far away from the forecast temperatures of 85 degrees or more in Chicago, which is even further north than some of the places in the Northeast? Well, it's like the country is having microclimates, as temperatures can top the 80s in one part of the area and have snow an hour's drive away. Weather modification patents are everywhere now, and stratospheric aerosol injections are now part of the CIA program to cool the planet. Barium and ammonium are elements named in some ice nucleation for weather modification patents. The combination of these elements cause an endothermic reaction that can lower temperatures from 70 degrees to as low as minus 30. The entire climate system is being affected to a degree that cannot be known. There is, in essence, no natural weather at this point, since the entire climate system is being derailed and disrupted from too many directions to comprehend. Are such constantly occurring engineered events skewing global climate data overall? There can be no question that this is a fact. Though it's impossible to know the full range of chemicals being used for the artificial ice nucleation of these toxic engineered storms, we know the snow is laden with toxic metals and chemicals in most cases. The elements found in lab testing match known primary elements named in numerous artificial ice nucleations for weather modification patents. Geoengineering the climate to halt global warming has been discussed almost as long as the threat of warming itself. American researchers back in the 1960s suggested floating billions of white objects, such as golf balls, on the oceans to reflect sunlight. In 1977, Cesar Marchetti of the Austria-based International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis discussed ways of catching all of Europe's CO2 emissions and injecting them into sinking Atlantic Ocean currents. But all of this applied mad science is in effect a way to induce a planetary chemotherapy that can harm the ecosystem. Speaking for the climate mainstream, activists such as Greta Thunberg stress that only a drastic push towards net zero carbon emissions can save the world. But as Thunberg readily admits, the politics to achieve this don't exist. If anything, the events of the past decade, including the failure of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, are actually pushing this mad science into the forefront. Some computer models suggest that it could lead to much less rain, and botched project could disrupt key weather patterns such as the Indian monsoons and the rains that sustain the Amazon. Recent studies suggest that it would make food crops less productive. This would guarantee a famine. Scarcity economies would have to form, and new technologies would swallow up all of the opportunity for organics in the infrastructure. The grim politics of net zero could lead geoengineering as a final gambit. Unlike carbon abatement, there's no need for a global consensus to launch it. It just takes one decision maker to use fear to convince everyone that runaway climate change is worth eliminating through geoengineering. And there are many candidates that want to make that decision, a decision that could accelerate the end of the world. This has been How the World Will End. If you want to be prepared for what comes next, go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com.